Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Coming up in our disability awareness segment, brought to you by ogpay.com, today we're chatting with Michael Kutcher, keynote speaker, disability organ donation advocate, and that's right, Ashton Kutcher's twin brother. Having overcome unthinkable challenges against extraordinary odds, Michael has taken his message and advocacy to the White House, the National Institute of Health, the Center of Disease Control, and recently he testified in front of Congress on behalf of the Cerebral Palsy Foundation. He's the creator of the Diffability brand and has recently finished his memoir to be released in the upcoming year. Today, he's here to chat disability awareness, cerebral palsy advocacy, and demystifying the stigmas around disabilities. Welcoming now to the show is the amazing Michael Kutcher. Welcome, my friend.
Hey, Zen, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to chat with you today. Now, I'm going to jump right in because I just want to get to know you here and tell the world who you are. So, I read that at age 13, you were diagnosed with viral cardiomyopathy and your heart grew to be 4 times the size of a normal one. You
Yep.
were told you had 3 to 4 weeks to live. Shortly thereafter, to my understanding, you went into cardiac arrest and your life expectancy shortened to 48 hours. Then came a heart donor and saved your life. And now you've been blessed with not multiple second chances, but many, many second chances, and are using the opportunity today to instill in others the lessons you've learned from facing your own mortality, basically. Talk to me about what those lessons are.
Yeah, I think that probably the biggest lesson, Zen, is the reality of how fragile life really is. That it can be taken from us at a moment notice. And that we need to recognize that we need to live each day as if it were our last. And I often ask people, what would you do if you were told that you only had 3 or 4 weeks to live? It's a big question. I know that at the age of 13, what was in my mind, but I think that we really need to slow down sometimes. We need to take note of that, and we need to capitalize on that. What are the things that you would want to say to people? Where would you want to go? What things would you want to experience? And why are we waiting for that moment to be told that mortality is on our doorstep? Why aren't we doing those things now? Why aren't we living in the moment? So I think it kind of opened my eyes to that, for sure. I think as well, it also opened up my eyes to the need to give back to others. Um, and the power of giving back. I often say that the only way to move forward is to give back. So those are a couple lessons that my experiences have kind of put into frame for me, that I like to share with others.
It's interesting because when you talk about giving back, there's many ways we could give back. But when we talk about organ donation, there's over 100,000 people in the US that are waiting for an organ transplant. And unfortunately, many may never even get the call saying that a suitable, donor organ and a second chance at life has been found. And it's estimated that every day in the US, 20 patients die because of the lack of donor organs. It could be extremely hard to think about what's going to happen to our bodies after we die, let alone donating our organs and tissue. What do you wish to tell people?
I think that there's a lot of good conversation around that. I think there's a lot of, people have a right to ask questions. They have a right to understand what happens during the process. And I think that if we educate ourselves more on what that process looks like, we might be a little bit more suited to be able to make a better decision about being an organ donor. The one thing I will mention is I had my transplant when I was 13 years old. I'm 45. That's 31, 32 years that I've been given because of someone else's gift of life. The things that I've been able to do are amazing. The people I've been able to inspire, the generosity that I've been able to give back. I have a family now. I have a 18-year-old son that wouldn't even know what life is had someone else not given me a second chance at life. So I want to be an example for how organ donation can live on and how people can live fulfilling lives, and achieve great things because of the simple generosity of other people.
It's so beautiful and so touching. Talking about paying it forward in the highest, most impactful way. That would be it. Organ donation. And
Well, I mean,
I echo your sentiment with what you just said.
thank you. And the thing is, we all look for ways to, I get a lot of messages that say, how can I be an advocate? How can I give back? You don't need to have a celebrity name. You don't need to have a platform or a podcast or write a book to give back. This is the one way that you can give back, that everyone can give back.
There you go.
You
Now
just have to be willing.
now I wanna be mindful of the time so we can get as many questions in because I wanna just hear your wonderful stories, but it's true, anyone who has ever achieved something worthwhile has had challenges and setbacks because, of course, as we know, anything that's worth doing is gonna be difficult, and overcoming adversity is such a necessary step on the road to greatness, and you're there, my friend. Now, you're a keynote speaker, you carry the Kutcher name, you're a fierce advocate for inclusion and demystifying the stigmas surrounding disabilities. What is the motivation behind your advocacy, and why is the Cerebral Palsy Foundation so important to you?
I think the motivation behind my advocacy is that I have a voice. Well, we all have voices, but many years ago, when my brother Ashton Kutcher became more of a celebrity and a household name, there was a little bit of a spotlight that was put on me as well. And I thought to myself, well, if there's going to be a spotlight on me, if people are going to listen to my voice a little bit more clear because I have a celebrity name or I have a platform now, then I'm going to do what I need to do to be able to give back and use that voice for good. And that's what I do is I try to get the message out. And I think that cerebral palsy is, I obviously was diagnosed at the age of 3 with cerebral palsy, and that's why it's so close to me. And the Cerebral Palsy Foundation is doing such great work towards advocacy, towards research and development, and it's a foundation that I've been a part of for many years. In fact, I just testified in front of Congress regarding funding for cerebral palsy. Of all of the disorders out there, if you can believe it or not, cerebral palsy has zero federal funding towards research and development.
Unbelievable.
And I find that to be a problem. I find that to be personally.
I would say so.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me feel like I don't matter, right? As an individual with cerebral palsy. So I'm on a mission to change that. I think we can change that. We just need the community to stand up, lobby your legislators, write to them, message them, let them know that we have a problem and what the problem is, and that we want to solve it. We need federal funding.
We need federal funding. I will help you in that fight, my friend. Now, for those of you listening, cerebral palsy is a group of disorders that affect a person's ability to move and maintain balance and posture. And it's the most common motor disability in childhood specifically. And cerebral means having to do with the brain, and palsy means weakness or problems with using the muscles. And about 1 in 345 children have been identified with CP, according to estimates from the CDC's Autism and Developmental Disabilities Monitoring Network. And over half, that's about 50 to 60% of children with cerebral palsy can, in fact, walk independently. So these are important statistics to keep in mind. Now, you, Michael, are Ashton Kutcher's twin. You ended up having this disability, and you have been advocating since. How are your efforts paving the way for the disability community, and what is the most important task at hand for you?
Well, I think that how they're paving the way is I think I'm just a voice, right? I think that I'm a voice for many, that a lot that actually don't have a voice. But as I mentioned, I think that everyone needs to pave the way. I think that the only way, I'm only one voice, but I think that if we all band together, especially in the cerebral palsy community, we can definitely achieve what we need to achieve. So I hope to reach people. I hope to give people hope, not only of what cerebral palsy can look like as you age and you become an adult, and the things that you can achieve. I also, want to be able to give people hope in the organ donation space as well, in terms of my 32 years of longevity in life that I've been able to achieve as well. So those are kind of what I'm aiming for. Um, I'm sorry, Zay, I forgot the second part of your question.
Oh no, that was pretty much, how are your efforts paving the way for the community and the most important task at hand, but you answered both of them so eloquently. So we'll move on to the next question. Now, of course, at the end of the day, it all begins with advocacy and the message that you want to deliver to America. So let's talk about that message.
Yeah.
You want to get America on board with helping pass legislation to add cerebral palsy to funding on a government level
Yeah.
now, but in hopes of demystifying the stigmas surrounding disabilities and families challenged with 24/7 caregiving. What do you want to say to that?
Yeah, so in terms of the funding, there's over 1 million people in the US, 17 million worldwide. They're diagnosed with cerebral palsy. I think you give a great stat. One in 348 children are diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And once again, we have zero federal funding towards research and development. And if we had research and development and funding for it, maybe we could decrease the severities, right? Maybe there's people with higher severities that could have less or more mobility, much like myself. Maybe someday we could find a cure. It's out there. We just need the help to get the federal funding to be able to do that research and development.
It's extremely important because people living with disabilities are often excluded and paid below wage expectation. But of course, this embrace of remote work, spurred by the pandemic, helped the employment rate for disabled people reach an all-time high last year. And the percentage of disabled people who were employed rose to about 21% in 2022. And this is according to data released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And daily tasks such as commuting and navigating an office space can be difficult, of course, for people depending on their disability and the level of disability. But as companies adopted remote and hybrid work arrangements, more disabled people applied for and landed jobs, sometimes for the first time in years. But overall, disabled people, Michael, are still, as you know, less likely to be employed than their counterparts who don't have disabilities, and they are twice as likely to be employed part time. What do you say to this?
I think it's unfortunate. I think that society has a long way to go. Actually, you bring up a good point. I think that the pandemic is actually helping us because it's allowing the disability community to prove to the employment community
Yes.
that we can do it. Of course, it's easier if I'm in my own home and I have my own accessibilities to be able to go down to my computer and log in and work from home. Of course, it's easier for us. But you know, I'm living proof. I work a full time job. I'm in the financial field. I work for a large insurance company, and I have a leadership role within that insurance company. I worked there for 18 years. They're well aware of my disability, and they embrace it. We need more organizations that understand people's abilities and that don't look at their disabilities or their inability to do things.
We are very fortunate that you have an employer that embraces your disability. And, people don't understand what that really means and how much it actually goes a very long way for somebody in your situation. And, philosopher Edmund Burke said it best: he that wrestles with us strengthens our nerves and sharpens our skill. Our antagonist is our helper. life is the worthy opponent, the antagonist. We all need to grow. And when you have the right tools to overcome adversity, you embrace the situation as a helper rather than letting it stop you from achieving your goals and reaching your dreams. And that's exactly what you've done. You are living proof of this. You have paved the way for yourself, for the community. You have taken your name and have really done so many amazing things with educating the community, with carrying the organ donations community, in making it a very, very valid point to be able to pay it forward in that capacity, no matter how hard of a concept it is for people that are living to digest. But you've done such a good job at using yourself as an example. So, number one, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story, for being so transparent, and for being just a trailblazer in your community.
Well, thank you, Zach. I appreciate the opportunity to share my story.
Yeah, absolutely. That was our disability awareness segment, brought to you by ogpay.com. That was the amazing Michael Kutcher, keynote speaker, disability organ donation advocate. Head directly to his website at michaelkutcher.com or check him out on the gram at mkutch. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OGPay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OGPay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.